Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Celmer, and I will soon be 62 years old in November. And I'm here to tell my story about the day that my aorta dissected. But first, I'm going to start with who I was before. I've been an athlete my whole life. I was a runner. I did every sport. When I no longer could run 4 or 5 miles a day, I would walk 4 or 5 miles a day. And that was my daily routine. That was my meditation. I also have a 17-year-old son. And what I noticed when I was walking my 5 miles a day was that I was having a funny arrhythmia. And I was getting these blood rushes to my head. And I thought, that doesn't feel well. I'm feeling a little bit dizzy on these walks now and then. I should probably check that out. So I went to see a cardiologist who did a stress test, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and it came back abnormal. They did an angiogram. They said, your heart is fine. It's your electrical system. Now, my story of the aortic dissection is not like most, I would say. It was not due to a connective disorder. It's not due to some kind of Marfan syndrome, anything like that. This is really a cautionary tale because mine was caused by an intern doctor in the operating room. So let me go back a little bit. I went to the cardiologist, and he sent me to an electrophysiologist cardiologist to put a monitor on me. And, it didn't show very much. I think it was 2 to 4% of the time I had these benign PVCs, they called them. Now, this is my bad. I have a master's in psychology. I am a researcher. I work for Cisco. I know about technology. And for some reason, I didn't do my homework about this. And had I done that, things may have been different today. But he suggested I do a cardiac ablation for these PVCs. And without any drug therapy or anything to see if that would do it before they did something a little more invasive. This was a large hospital in Los Angeles. He was a respected doctor, and I said yes to this based on the fact that he said it was a fairly easy procedure and I would go home that day. Flash forward a couple of weeks, my surgery day is there. I go early in the morning, and the first doctor who comes in to see me is a young woman with wet hair who looks like she hasn't slept in 58 hours. And she does my intake, and I get a feeling that something's not exactly what should be happening. I do finally run into the doctor I think is going to do my procedure. And I ask him, are you the one that's going to do my procedure? And he looks at me and he says, yes. And I asked the woman at the desk, am I the only procedure today? And she said, oh, no, there's 2 or 3 others. So I asked him again when I had the opportunity, are you doing my procedure today? And he said, yes. So they wheel me into the operating room, and that same woman is in there with the wet hair, and she's doing the call off for me. And I have a couple of other interns in there because clearly this was a teaching hospital. And that was never really made clear to me that that was going to be how this procedure was going to be done. So again, I say this is a cautionary tale. Ask lots of questions. Make sure you read what you sign. And understand that sometimes the doctor you think is going to do your procedure doesn't always do it, and he may not even be in the room. So what I can tell you is that the procedure did not go well. It was during that procedure that my aorta was slit, dissected from my right leg to my left shoulder. And I remember waking up at some point on the table, and that the arrhythmia, one, I did wake up in the recovery room. One, they didn't know what happened, and they didn't know it for quite some time. I woke up in the most excruciating pain that I can never want to remember. I was coming off the table and I still had the catheter in, or the plug, and I was trying to get off the table because it felt like someone had stuck a knife in my back and was running it down. They couldn't give me enough drugs to stop it. And that's a day that I never want to relive, is what I can say. They didn't know what was going on. They did some minor tests, and finally someone said, send her in for a CT scan. Now, my surgery was at 7 in the morning. They didn't do the CT scan till 7 that night. And I remember hearing, is this what you're looking for? And that's when all hell broke loose, and I was rushed to intensive care. They called my family and said, you need to get here. Okay. So now they've discovered what is clearly a life-threatening situation. And I'm in a room and there's doctors coming in and they're bringing in 30 students. So I am now, the aortic dissection that everyone needs to see and listen to and hear, because it's a teaching situation, if you can imagine. And yeah, there's some things I don't think I'll ever forgive about some of this. I am now in ICU and for the next 12 days. And doctors are coming in. The woman who did this is sitting at my bed. Everyone's hush hush. No one wants to talk about this. I'm having this incredible pain around the center of my body that they can't explain, and the pain medicine's not helping. And they really don't know what to do with me at some point, because I lived past like the 48-hour mark of, okay, she might survive this. And what is unbelievable about this is that the blood supply to all of my organs is intact. I'm just bleeding in a channel that shouldn't be there. After 12 days, they send me home. They opted not to do anything about it and sent me home with massive amounts of drugs to keep my blood pressure and my blood flowing at a minimum. So I was actually a zombie. I could hardly get up off the bed, the couch. And that went on for 4 months. And we did CT after CT scan. I don't know how many there were. And nothing changed. It didn't heal. Thrombosing wasn't occurring. And again, I'm on these massive doses to keep my blood pressure down. And what starts to happen is I have intense anginas attacks that send me to the ER. I think there were 2 or 3 of them. And I would go in, another CT scan, everything's the same. They don't know what's causing it. And no one really wants to touch me at this point. Ultimately, I had another angina attack, and I went to a different hospital. And it was my son's birthday, and the cardiac surgeon said to me, we need to do something about this or you're not going to make it. And they opted to do a TAVR surgery that day on my son's birthday. It was a difficult decision. I didn't want anything to happen and for him to always remember his birthday as the day that his mom passed or anything like that. So, but I didn't have much choice, and I consulted all my friends and family, and they said, you have to do this. And they put in 2 stents into the top of my aorta to try and stop the bleeding and create some kind of healing. Spent a bunch of time in ICU again at this hospital, and the surgery was successful. And it was the start of my recovery. It began to thrombose and create some some scar tissue, and I haven't had any kind of major angina attack since. Let me go back. I can tell you this, the original dissection injury was October 26th of 2015. So I am coming up on my 6-year anniversary for this. It took a good 1.5 to 2 years post TAVR surgery to begin to feel like myself again. Drug therapy remained. My ability to get back to my athletic self has taken quite some time, but I can tell you now that after 5 years, I'm playing pickleball and walking 2 to 3 miles a day again. And I want to thank the doctors at this other hospital who did this and extended my life, because I think that had I not done that and had this not been successful, it would be a different story, if at all, being told today. I can tell you that in addition to the dissection that happened, which was never accounted for by anyone at the original hospital, that the legal system and the disability system in California were additional injuries to the one that I already had. That's, I don't know if that's a whole other story. And I know some of you, most of you, have had horror stories with disability systems and not recognizing aortic dissection and what that actually does, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually to you, and not granting disability. I was lucky. I owned my own business for 17 years, and I took out private disability insurance, which got me through the time I needed to heal. Without that, I don't know what I would have done. The legal system in California is another nightmare, as because of the laws here in terms of protecting the medical profession and not the people who need it. A whole other story in itself. In regards to PTSD, which I clearly suffered from post dissection. As I mentioned before, I have a master's in psychology. I did practice psychology for 5 years. And so I knew a little bit about this, and I knew the signs and the symptoms. I clearly remember being terrified being in a car in the passenger seat for fear that if any bump set the pillow out, that it would hit me in the chest and I would die instantly. That was my fear. I was never getting on a bike. I was never going to do anything I could fall or be jolted in a crowd. So PTSD had clearly visited me, and I did know enough about it to know that I needed help. I connected with a therapist right away, and she was doing sessions with me over the phone. She was coming to my home. We were doing this at least 2 times a week for months, and I'm very grateful to her. In addition to that, I meditated every day when I woke up. And if you don't know about meditation or how to do that, it's just simply quieting the mind and sitting with yourself and allowing yourself to just be. And I can tell you that that was invaluable to me. I also wrote. I wrote everything. I wrote the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I kept journals, and I wrote poetry. And I don't know if I'll ever share them. And I started to write a book about this. I don't know that I'll ever share it, but I wrote it, and in the process of getting that out, that has been invaluable to me. I don't talk about it much to friends or family. it still can be as raw as the day it happened. And that period after was so very difficult and so very scary. I was frightened for a long time. I can tell you that it does get better, and that if you reach out and you do ask for help, it is available. PTSD is real, and it lasts. And if you need medication to help you through that, I did that too. No longer on it, but for a good couple of years, that's what I needed to get me through some of those days and those moments that were so low. So I encourage anyone to seek out help and to research the signs and symptoms of PTSD, and because it will get in the way of your happiness with your family, with your partner, with your children. And it's serious and it needs to be addressed. But like I said, I now am working full time for a tech company and a job that I enjoy. I have a new relationship that I can now have and feel that I can be present and healthy in. And I have a 17-year-old son that I am starting to get ready for college. So I feel blessed. I feel so grateful for everything that I do have. And I have my spirituality and my thoughts about why I went through the situation that I did. And I have to accept that, knowing that as part of my own journey. And I am really grateful that I'm able to share it today, because that's also part of my journey and my healing. So thank you for listening. And if it helps one person, then I feel like I did the right thing.